Okay, please welcome Judy Becker, production designer of The Brutalist. Hi, Judy. Hi. Oh my goodness, Judy. Who's seen The Brutalist out here? There you go. The first we have to start with is the Van Buren Institute. I know you're not an architect, but what you did was, it's a hot mic, so you're all good. But talk about, walk us through your design process for what this institute would look like and the conversations that you had with Brady.
I approach every movie with the same process, which is trying to create a believable world, et cetera, for the movie. But it was, and no different for this one, but it was a little more complicated because I had to also create believable architecture that Lajlo designed. And so I didn't really think about it that much in terms of being worried. This feels pretty echoey. But I did, and I kind of did it backwards because I designed the Institute first, and that's what Brady and I talked about. He wanted me to design the Institute so we could figure out how we were going to show it in the movie. We knew we weren't going to build the whole thing. So we needed a design to say we're going to build that, and we're going to build that, and we're going to find a location for that. And that was our first conversation and my first design job on the movie. So I spent a few weeks designing it, and then that was well before we prepped the movie or shot the movie. And that was, in a way, it was daunting because I had to figure out a way to incorporate the architecture of concentration camps into this gigantic commission that Lajlo was given. But it was also, in a way, familiar because I love brutalist architecture, unlike most people, and always have. So, in a way, I was starting with something that was something I was looking forward to delving into, not the concentration camp part. That was very difficult. And once I figured out how to do that, I basically saw that I was building a giant factory or crematorium on the hill that was a subversive way of giving Harrison what he wanted. And I loved Lajlo doing that, in a sense, this subversive architecture. And then when we really started prepping the movie, it was just more a question of Lajlo evolving through time and through these periods of architecture until he reached that moment, which is really when Lajlo comes into himself and really, and also it's almost like his, I think of it like Moby Dick a little bit. It's his white whale, this institute, and it's literally, the Carrara marble is part of it. So he looks very happy. I love that clip because it's the only time Lajlo looks happy in the entire movie, and kind of serene. And because he hasn't yet embarked on this torturous process of designing the Institute. But I also feel like that wasn't a huge challenge for him. That was a money project and he did it and it looks gorgeous. It was hard for me, by the way, but for him it wasn't. And I sometimes speak about him like he was a real person, which he was not. And I often have to repeat that. But so I don't know if that answered the question, but that was part of the answer.
No, it absolutely did. And let me tell you, Judy, when I left that film, as somebody who also loves brutalist architecture, I did go on Google and I was like, oh, he's not real. Shoot. I was so disappointed. Something else, I know there are a lot of students in the audience too. For those aspiring production designers, you actually shot this in Hungary. And you did such an incredible job of turning that into Philadelphia in the 1940s. Like, talk about the challenges of shooting on location.
It wasn't, I've done a lot of period films. I just seem to have fallen into that niche. It's, and I've shot most of them in places where they didn't take place. And needless to say, in a time period where they didn't happen. So Hungary was a bit more challenging, obviously, because it's not the United States. But in a way, it was not that much more challenging than shooting New York and Cincinnati or New York and Boston or New York and LA was pretty hard. I can tell you that, and I did that too, so because the light is so different. So there's it's always hard, and I did London and Montreal. Like there's a lot of, and I've done it so many times that it wasn't in some ways it was easier because Budapest was under Soviet control for so long that things didn't get gentrified and didn't get built. New buildings didn't get built. So there was this old industrial area that looked a lot like Philadelphia in the 1940s. So there were parts of it that were easier in a sense. And we shot a lot there. And it's called Chapel. Other people were shooting there too. We weren't the only ones. But so there were things that worked out to our advantage, and things were tough, and other things were tougher. But there were some great, really great locations there, and we took advantage of them. They really offered a lot, and I think we were lucky in that way. I think it was a great place to shoot this particular movie. I think if it had been I think I would have had trouble shooting Carol there, for example. That might have made it harder. But for this movie and for Brady, it was a great place to shoot.
Incredible. Okay, in a word or two, how would you describe working with Brady?
Collaborative, awe-inspiring, and a hard act to follow.
Love it. Okay, Judy, stay seated. I will have you back out for the group conversation. But for now, we're going to take a look at a clip from The Wardrobe, where everybody get up for
Thank you.
Judy Becker.